In the co-main event, we have another title on the line. This time it's the women's strawweight title between Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Jessica Andrade. As far as looking at this fight from a technical standpoint, you would figure that this fight's going to go Joanna's way, but there have been some rumblings that have been going around, and I feel like there's some truth to them too that I'll kind of get into here. So, there's been a lot of talk made about for Joanna Jędrzejczyk that in her first couple of fights in the UFC, she was incredibly dominant, was knocking people out, looked really strong, but in the last few fights, even though she's been so much better technically than her opponents, she hasn't exactly looked that great. She's gotten rocked at times, landing a lot of shots, but not necessarily getting the most damage out of them. I think that last fight with Kovalkiewicz is a really good example where those two ended up having a fight that was mostly on the feet. And if you look at how Karolina Kovalkiewicz fights, she's a very tough fighter, but she's not exactly the most technical fighter. So for her to be on the feet with Joanna for 25 minutes and to not get knocked out and even have her moment in the fourth round where she rocked Joanna, it's a bit concerning, both that Joanna got rocked in that fourth round the way that she did. It wasn't like it was the hardest shot you've ever seen that put her in a tough spot. But also just the fact that Joanna, even though she's still landing a lot of these really long combos, she'll string 4 or 5 shots in together. It seems like all of the shots that she's throwing, like any of them individually, aren't exactly all that damaging, and even when she combines them together, it's not like she's rocking people or putting too much damage on them. Now, granted, even the knockout ones she's had in the past, it's just been really cumulative, like the Jessica Penne fight or the Carla Esparza fight, where she's just landing over and over and over and over again, and eventually getting them up against the cage and just finishing them off from there. So it's not like we've ever really seen Joanna Jędrzejczyk just head kicking someone like Holly Holm did to Ronda Rousey, or landing one punch knockouts, kind of like your Mighty Mouse versus Joseph Benavidez. You weren't seeing those in the past, but even in the most recent fights, that's sort of been the case as well. So with Jessica Andrade, this is another similar type of situation to the Kovalkiewicz fight in a way, where on the feet, Andrade, again, she's tough, but she's not exactly the most technical striker you're ever going to see. And in theory, if this fight stays on the feet, which it most likely will, you'd figure not Kovalkiewicz, that Joanna Jędrzejczyk is going to have the advantage if this fight stays on the feet. But the concern with Joanna getting rocked in the Kovalkiewicz fight, the concern with her not necessarily being a shot fighter, but looking like she's kind of regressing in a way. I don't really feel like the Joanna Jędrzejczyk that beat Jessica Penne versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Kovalkiewicz. I don't feel like those two fighters, there's a really big difference in a positive way. And usually over that period of time, you'd like to see more improvement, and it doesn't feel like Joanna's getting a whole lot better. But again, the thing with MMA that's kind of tough from the outside is that we only see these guys or girls fight once, twice, maybe 3 times a year, and that's all we can really judge off of them. We're not actually seeing them in the gym, so you don't always know how good they are if they're having a tough matchup that makes them look bad, if they're just having a really bad day, when in general they're actually a lot better. But from what we've seen from Joanna, there is reason for concern. And in another fight like this one with Andrade, even if Joanna's outlanding her, Andrade can hit very hard, and if she catches Joanna, there's a very real possibility that she's going to be able to take her out. So as far as who I'd predict to win this fight, I think, again, like I've said in the past, and this isn't my thing, it's said in a lot of places, if you're predicting a fight in general, unless you're talking about a fight with an Anthony Rumble Johnson or someone who just constantly finishes people early, the best way to predict it is, if I were to tell you this fight went to a decision, tell me who you think won that decision, and usually that's the person who's going to win the fight. And if I'd asked you right now, or if I told you right now that this fight's going to a decision, you'd assume that over 5 rounds, Joanna's going to win the fight. So for that reason, I have to pick Joanna. But if she gets clipped and she gets finished, I will not be all that surprised. And as fans, I don't think you should be all that surprised. I know it's going to seem odd. I know Joanna's been the one dominant champ at strawweight. Granted, Carla Esparza was the first champion, so she's not the only champion there. But in a way, it sort of feels like it's always been Joanna's division. But again, if Joanna gets knocked off, don't be shocked. But hopefully for her, if she's still able to win, she can keep building on her stardom, get a fight with Rose Namajunas, and maybe at some point Joanna will start to move in on the Ronda Rousey territory, although I don't know that she'll ever be as popular as her. But again, this seems like a fight where there's a real chance that Joanna's going to get knocked out here. And I'm just saying, don't be surprised if it happens, but if you're putting money on this fight, these are about as good of odds as you're going to get in for a win for Joanna Jędrzejczyk. So I'm going to be betting on Joanna, but again, don't be shocked if she loses.